Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. AMC just reported earnings, and we have some numbers to get into here in this video. And on one hand, it was better than expectations. On the other hand, it's not that great. Overall, it's a win. It is positive. And we'll get into it here in this video. Now, on top of that, we're going to talk about what's happening in the markets today because you had that big jobs report and the unemployment rate hit a new low comparable to 1969. You have not been this low on the unemployment rate since then. That was a very long time ago. So we're going to talk about what that means for the markets as well as get into the data that is currently behind AMC. So let's break it all down for you. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. So first things first, right here, it says AMC on Friday reported a loss of $235.5 million in its first quarter. That is big. So the loss really didn't get much better, kind of right on expectations. Now, the loss per share was 17 cents. Losses adjusted for one-time gains and costs were 13 cents a share. So out of this $235.5 million number, a decent percent of that, about 40% of it, was more or less like interest payments, like one-time costs that come around, not necessarily what they're making or losing in this case from their business operations as a whole. So kind of a lot to unpack there. So as an aggregate, as a whole, AMC lost pretty much what they were expected to lose. So it wasn't better on that front. It's not like we got any good news as far as their loss. And I think that's why the stock is muted today, somewhat down, somewhat up. There's real no clear direction here today, and I think that is what I find the most interesting about today. It's not like you're cratering, it's not like you're ripping, it's like flat, literally flat today. Now the 13 cents per share looks a lot better if you take out those one-time payments, essentially. So under the surface, it's not that bad, and this is still a year-over-year increase of like 70% for the EPS. So it still is positive, and I'm not going to sit here and complain, but it's not like a big win fundamentally that, AMC seemed like it might post. They're still losing a lot of money. Now, the movie theater operator posted revenue of $954.4 million in the period, which also topped street forecasts. Four analysts surveyed by Zacks estimated $936.9 million. So they did beat there pretty good by about 25 million, give or take, almost 30 million. And that's the bright spot really of this earnings is they did just beat on the top line, which does kind of show that, hey, maybe we're recovering a little bit faster than what a lot of people thought. But again, you need more movies to go to theaters, and you need AMC to be able to monetize a lot better than what they currently are. Now, the stock was up a couple percentage points in the beginning of trading today, but it has since given some of that back. Now, if we go ahead and look at this article from Barron's, it says AMC stock rises after earnings beat. It cites box office recovery. And we'll go ahead and get straight into this article. It says AMC Entertainment Holdings reported its first quarter results ahead of Wall Street's expectations on Friday. The movie theater chain reported a first quarterly loss of 13 cents a share on revenue of $954 million. Analysts surveyed by FactSet had expected AMC to report a loss of 16 cents per share on revenue of $938 million. So it looks like that 13 cents per share is the number that is actually hitting headlines, that is making things look a lot better here. Now, Quote, our results for the first quarter of 2023 represent AMC's strongest first quarter in 4 full years, said AMC's chairman and CEO Adam Aron in a statement. The first quarter of 2023 and fourth quarter of 2022 marked the first 2 consecutive quarters of positive adjusted EBITDA since March 2020. This progress is a testament to the ongoing recovery in the industry-wide box office. AMC was hampered by COVID, and it goes on to talk about the apes there. It says during the first quarter, AMC raised $155 million of cash through the sale of ape units, reducing the principal balance of its debt by more than $200 million and repurchasing debt or exchanging ape units for debt, the group said. AMC added that it has raised additional gross proceeds of $34.2 million from the sale and around 21.2 million ape shares in the current quarter. So they've sold some more ape, right? They've gained about 34.2 million, sold about 21.2 million in the current quarter that we're in right now. So I don't think that's really a problem here, kind of something that we expected to see. Overall, I would say that loss is just big, right? And we were hoping that loss would go down. On an EPS basis, it looks like 13 cents per share is what they're going to go with here. It still came in at 17 cents per share if you include those one-time payments. So it's not like this was a huge win. It wasn't a huge loss as well, I would say, fundamentally. So AMC stock was up about 3% or so in pre-market after their results came out. And then as soon as the markets opened here today, AMC stock started to take some pretty red candles. And now you're sitting down about 0.5%. So this is really not what I expected. I expected firmly either, a 10% rally, 10 to 15% rally at least, or a 10% drop, because AMC does tend to move very big after earnings. But you're not getting none of that. It won't pick a direction here, and it's not falling, or it's really not rising, which I think is kind of interesting. Now, what is actually happening here is I think what we talked about yesterday. Earnings only matter so much, right? The courts is what ultimately matters. That's going to move AMC's share price. Not too much is changing from a quarter by quarter basis with AMC. But when we get new developments or new information from the courts, that is going to dictate, hey, do we get AMC raising more capital and diluting shareholders, or is that not going to happen? We're kind of in limbo here. We really don't know. So I think that is really the thing that people are waiting for, essentially. And we should get new news on that at some point in the month of May. Likely a revo of common stockholders. We talked about that many times before, and I think that is the most likely outcome. Overall, though, it's not a terrible earnings. So whenever AMC has not so terrible earnings, the stock does tend to rally after earnings. If we go ahead and pull up the chart, it's pretty clear. We've talked about it many times. Sometimes usually actually the day of earnings and the day after earnings, you tend to fall, and then you rally after earnings, right? Like back here in November of 2022, you fell about 8% the day after earnings, and then you rallied 20% back to back and another 2%. Back here, when you reported earnings, you actually rallied 19% the day after earnings. But even back here, right? This was May of 2022. The day after earnings, you fell 5.5%. The day after that, you fell 12.4%. And then you bottomed and started to rally heading into next quarter earnings. Back here in March of 2022, you fell the day after earnings 2%, 8%, and then another 8%, and continued to trend down lower until you hit that bottom. And then, went up from $7 to $21, and over 300% rally. So this is not uncommon. Even if you look further back here in August of 2021, AMC stock dropped 6% after earnings, and then they dropped another 0.5%. And then you bottomed out, and you really started to rally from there. So this is not atypical of AMC to fall after earnings and then rally subsequent days and weeks following, and that's something that I'll be watching for. Couple that with any information about the court. So that's all we're really getting from earnings right now. We'll have to go back on the earnings call and see if there's any headlines there, but we really didn't get too many updates on anything. And I think that's what some people are kind of waiting for to hear is, what's going on with the popcorn business? What's going on with the credit card business? How is the variable pricing for the seats going in your theaters? A couple other initiatives as well. We want to know how those things are doing individually so we can revise our forecasts and our estimates, and it doesn't look like we're getting all too much of that yet. Now, let's talk about this jobs report, and holy moly, job growth totals 253,000 in April, beating expectations even as the U.S. economy slows. Non-farm payrolls increased 253,000 for April, beating Wall Street estimates for growth of 180,000. The unemployment rate was 3.4% against an estimate of 3.6% and tied for the lowest level since 1969. Let that sink in there. After a record year of Fed tightening, the unemployment rate is way lower than it was at the start of this tightening cycle. It makes you wonder if maybe rate hikes just don't work anymore. Maybe they just don't cool the economy enough. Maybe we're in a different world nowadays. And that could be a possibility because people are obviously not losing their jobs fast enough, as the Fed would say, which sucks to say, but that's what the Fed wants to see. Bit of bad news. Average hourly earnings rose 0.5% for the month and increased 4.4% from a year ago, both higher than expected. So this data right here shows, the Fed does not have to cut rates. They don't have to stop raising rates. If you get a hot CPI report coming here next week, you're not going to get a pause from the Fed. That's very clear. And I think that will turn into a slowly, a more negative thing in the market's eyes, but we'll just have to wait and see for that. Now, you got the last couple readings getting revised. So some of the last readings were revised like 70,000 a piece for that March report and that February report. So now the March report is reading about 165,000 job ads, and the February report is reading about 248,000 job ads. So still strong, but the revisions for last month were quite large as well. So that's what we have here. If you look at March's count was slashed to 165,000, down 71,000 from the initial estimate, while February fell 248,000, a reduction of 78,000. So some downward revisions there. But in all reality, this is really good data, and it does not support the Fed pausing or cutting rates anytime soon. So watch to see if that turns into a negative thing in the market's perspective. Now, if we take a look at AMC and the Ortex data here, the short interest value estimate, 773 million, 25.29% short interest of free float out on loan at 33%, 170.4 million shares that are currently out on loan, 4.88 days to cover, 3-month cost to borrow rates at 228.86%, and 100% share utilization. We take a look at the live numbers. Cost to borrow rates are not updating, but it looks like about 334% on the cost to borrow average. Cost to borrow max 345%. Cost to borrow minimum at 320%. About 2.7 million shares that are available to be lent out per Interactive Brokers, and I think that is weird as well. I really want to know where those shares are coming from, if it's Intera Capital that is lending out more stock or not. We'll see when we get a new update. Cost of borrow rates on these 2.7 million shares, about 187%. So even though you're seeing more shares available today, you're not seeing those cost of borrow rates fall. And I think that just shows volatility can be expected over, the next subsequent weeks, because after all, AMC does tend to rally the weeks following earnings, guys. So there you have it. That's basically it. we'll have to give you guys a deeper rundown of anything that is said on the earnings call if there's any updates to any of those businesses here. But all in all, I would say it's a positive because it's not as bad as it could have been. And on top of it, it looks like there's probably a lot of shorting happening today because it is a positive report, right? AMC could have lost more money. Things could have been worse. And AMC's revenue projections have been getting higher heading into this earnings, whereas even the markets were going lower. Their estimates were going lower heading into their earnings. So I do think there is a balance here of shorts that are shorting AMC, that are pushing down the price of AMC. But also, I mean, people are excited the stock's not down 10% right now. So I think that is ultimately a good thing. I was wrong, though. I expected firmly to be up or down 10 to 15%, my expectations. But nonetheless, that is going to do it for this video. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. What do you guys think is going on here today with AMC stock? Why are we slightly in the red today? And where do you think we're going to go over the next couple of days? So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.